Welcome to Get on the Ark. My name is Darren Conrad, your host. For those of you who don't know who we are, this show is about how God is doing extraordinary and miraculous things in ordinary people's lives. There's a storm coming, a spiritual storm with dark days ahead for all of humanity. And just as God warned Noah to build an ark to save his family from the coming flood, all across the globe, God is calling his people out of darkness and out of complacency and into a relationship with Jesus to save us from the storm that is coming to our generation. So welcome to Get on the Ark. It is an honor to have our special guest, Andrea Beloff, a prophetic painter, a child of God. And, we had a divine appointment with Mary Crowley's Zoom call, and that's how we met. And so welcome, Andrea.
Thank you, Darren. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
I really enjoy talking to you. You have an incredible story, and you have a lot of messages. So I know your journey in faith. Can you just walk us through a little bit about your story?
All right. I'm going to start from when I was in the womb, because it really does start there. The Lord was with me. And evidence of that is that when I was in the womb, the last month and a half, I didn't feed because my mom had some complications. And yet the Lord carried me. And I just think that's just such a huge testimony just right from the get-go, because a month and a half, I could have died in childbirth or in the womb, and I didn't. He gave me the strength to survive, and he, I give glory to him that I'm alive today. And, I ended up in the incubator for a little while. So that separation, I think, kind of started the seeds of pulling me apart from the people that I love is kind of like the path the enemy took in my life. So he really attacked my heart and the love connection from a very, very early place. So I would say that my biggest testimony is how the Lord used all the things that the adversary played against me from very young age to restore my heart and really make me feel loved. And now I'm like so dependent on that. Like I've created, once I put it all together, I just, I'm like Moses, show me your glory. I need to be with you. I need proof of your love at every moment. I need proof of your manifestation in my life. And not that I need it because I lack faith. It's just, I guess the wound was that I needed more assurance, and I guess I kind of need more assurance on an ongoing basis. And that is the right way to love me, is to assure me. So my family, let's go into my family. My dad was a Jewish man, but he was an atheist. His mom, her dad was a rabbi. And he made her go to do Sabbath every week and do all the feasts and stuff. And she had to do that, but she didn't teach that to her family. So she is the weak link in the descendants of my family. And 10 people later, I'm the one that came to Jesus. So that's how the Lord has worked this to restore me and my family and the lineage. So then my mom was a Catholic, but not a very practicing person. I don't think either one of them really understood, the most principal aspect of this walk is knowing Jesus as our Lord and Savior, and knowing that he redeemed us, and that through him, this gift that is not to boast about, that he has given us eternal life and salvation and healing, and just an opportunity for us to come and know the Father. Through Jesus, we come to the Father. So somehow the Father inserted himself, I think, a little bit earlier in my life, or because the Father and Jesus are one, it's they both have inserted themselves into my life prior to me looking for them. I guess in my time of need, they they were there even without me knowing. So that always, makes me have a lot of reverent awe for God, just knowing that he is with us. He really is with us, and we really shouldn't ever doubt that. And even in the most painful of circumstances, uh, if we really go back and review those times, there will always have been signs, I think, that he is with us and that he has protected us, and somehow allowed us to feel the pain less, or allow the pain in order to teach us something. So then I had a brother who was a real piece of work. He was older, and his name was Paul, and he was a pest. He was literally a pest. He was a teaser, and he did all kinds of stuff to always try to fight with me and pin me down and hurt me. And he wanted to play with me, but it always, there was always somehow it always turned into something that made me cry. So that was who my brother was. He would learn little tricks in school. Like, he would come home and you get your two fingers and you lick them, and then you go like that on your rear end. Do you remember that as a child? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, he came back doing that to me all the time. And then another one that he'd do is he'd grab his knuckle and really hit me on my spine. Like, it was torture. It was torture. As a young girl, it was torture. And then he'd pin me down on the floor, and his knees would be digging here, and he'd like loosen like a loogie out of his mouth into my face. I
Oh,
mean, there was my cousins who were all boys, and so there was always the jingle song, for everyone in the family of, how to tease them just right. And so there was a lot of this teasing going on. I was born in New Jersey. So I was born in New Jersey, lived the next year in New York, and lived the following 3 years in Chicago, because my dad was a high voltage consulting engineer. And so that, once he reinstated himself in that field, um, because when he came, I guess I have to tell this part of the story too. When he came to America, he's Argentine. Both my parents are Argentine. When he came to America, he got promised an engineering job. So before he got here, he, financed a car and looked for housing. And when he got here, the job didn't come through. So basically, there wasn't a contract with every dot I'd and every T crossed. And he learned from that. And from then on, he became a real stickler about contracts. So he sold vacuum cleaners from door to door for 2 years. And that was his humbling beginnings, in the United States. After, Argentina has some of the best engineering colleges and universities, and he got a really good education. That was something that his family really pushed for, is high education. That's common in the Jewish families. So he was all high education, but he had to survive as a door-to-door vacuum cleaner, sale of vacuum cleaners. Um, so once he reinstated himself and put his application and got a job, then he quickly got promoted. And when I was 5 and we were in Chicago, he got asked to open a branch in Brazil. So we all moved to Brazil, and we moved to Rio de Janeiro. And but when we lived in Chicago, we had these friends, and they also had 2 boys. So I was always the girl amongst the boys, and they were also very ruthless with me. They would tease me. They had a house that had a balcony. Their front door was on at the top of a set of steps, and they would ditch me on the grass in their lawn and go up to the steps and start screaming so the whole neighborhood could hear that I was pooing on the grass. And so, my family would come out and, and see that there's no such thing going on, but they were teasing me. So it was relentless. Like it was, I consider that in hindsight, emotionally abusive. Like I felt, that kind of predisposed me to be reactive or to feel helpless really, because nobody really came to my rescue. So I did go through a period of helplessness. And so, the weaknesses started setting in as a young child: abuse, helplessness, nobody coming to my rescue. Then we moved to Brazil. And in Brazil, my mom wasn't the one that took me to school or took me to the playground. Over there, it's very common to have maids. So the maid took me to the playground, and I rode this bus to school. And in kindergarten already, the boys were abusive, and they would chase me around the playground trying to kiss me, and I hated it. I literally hated it. Like they're really, they would make me cry all the time, and I'd sit on the bench with the teachers or the playground monitors, and I couldn't play because the harassment. And also when I'd go home on the bus, this is just setting the stage a little bit for some of the stuff that affected me. When I'd go home on the bus, I'd always sit in the front seat because I wanted to be close. It's like I always had to be in protective mode. So I sat by the driver, and these boys in the back would come and like literally grab me to the back of the bus. And when it get close to my house, I was never to be found, to be dropped off. I was in the back of the bus, trapped. And, and I'm like, I'm here, wait. And they were just trapping me so I couldn't get off at my house. And this happened almost every day. And one day one of them pulled down his pants, and I just started yelling really bad. But so I didn't want, I would ask my mom to pick me up from school at lunchtime so I didn't have to do the following class, so that I didn't have to go on the bus. And she didn't always want to do it. And my parents weren't receptive to the cries of their baby girl. So I endured, things like that, why did the Lord allow? I've never thought of it like, why did, it's God's fault. I always thought it's the boy's fault. I never blamed God for these things. But I grew up and realized, I kind of lived in protective mode. And I didn't really, I in school, I did have friends. I got to say, I always had friends at school. So I did have people that liked me, and I had friends. So it's not like I was this horrible case of being unloved by everybody. That wasn't the case. But, in key places, there was that lack of love. And my mom also favored my brother. And so, there was that dynamic too. And my dad wasn't home so much. And when, as he got more powerful in his business, he also, the power of becoming a powerful businessman also gave him the pride. And, I believe if we look back, there was probably some cheating going on. And my mom was always desperate to get my attention because I had a closeness with my dad that I would be the one to fix their relationship. And so she was a little abusive with me, in her desperation and her cry for help. And as a child, that's very hard to read. So I think I was burdened with her lack of inability too. And that led to, her treating me poorly too. And so the house was drama. let's just say the house with drama. And, I'd go to school. I loved going to school. To me, going to school was like the happiest place. And I had friends there, and I liked learning. I was good at school. I got good grades. It came easy to me. Um, I can't say I was creative yet at that age, but I did like learning, and and I got good grades, and I was always kind of head of the class. And and then in fourth grade, we were asked that we all had to mandatorily, because it was a Catholic school that I went to, School of Mary Immaculate in Sao Paulo. So before that, I was 2 years and a half in Rio de Janeiro. So Rio de Janeiro, as still a 5-year-old, I, you know, when you're new in a place, you kind of, your parents take you out on the weekends and stuff. And very many times we went up to the Christ the Redeemer, to the sculpture up in the mountain. And that was amazing because it's this giant statue of Jesus. It's very impactful. I remember we even got, I know that I got this because, from little vendors. This is the rose, can't remember the note, but anyway, it's a little cross that we bought up there. My mom had it and I kept it. You never know the treasures from the family, right? From the family, from their journey. They traveled a lot. So anyway, so I would go up to the Christ and I was amazed by that. But unfortunately, nobody knew how to explain, the sacrifice of Jesus Christ and make me understand, how he redeemed us. And so they didn't understand it. So I wasn't wise enough to ask the right questions either. I just knew I was in awe of, like, who is this man? But without asking, who is this man? It was like, I knew it was Jesus, but I didn't know his story. And I regret that. I should have been more inquisitive, I would think. But you know, Another incident where I felt Jesus inserted himself was one time I was at a supermarket in Ipanema, and there was this music blaring out of the supermarket, and the jingle stayed with me forever. And it was Roberto Carlos, which was like one of the most popular Brazilian singers. He was singing the Jesus Christ song. And it's kind of catchy. It's Jesus Cristo, Jesus Cristo, Jesus Cristo, eu estou aqui. And the whole song is about, later because I remember that song, remember how much it touched me, and I carried it with me as I'm thinking of my testimony back when I was painting the Hebrew letters prophetically. I recalled that, and I recall it's sticking to me. And then I went back to see, what does the song really say? And it was, how the Lord came as a fire by night and a cloud by day, and the whole walk of the Israelites. And since I'm Jewish, and that was the time when I was finding my roots, my Jewish roots, I was like in awe. I was like, wow, he was trying to reach me, back then through that song even. So, I do feel that I even had a dream later in life that he did reveal to me that he was looking for me as a younger child. I didn't have the right paradigm to put it all together. But I guess Catholic school didn't teach us enough. Or I wasn't paying attention enough. I don't know. But so I walked my life without, and even though I went to Catholic school, I didn't understand the Jesus part, but I saw everybody going to mass, probably once a week or once every 2 weeks. The whole school would gather in the auditorium to have a mass. And I really wanted to participate. Like, I enjoyed hearing, I don't know about hearing the sermons, that was a little boring, but singing and then getting in line and taking communion. And I thought, I enjoyed seeing that. And sometimes I'd even go and take communion because I wanted to be a part of it, even though I maybe wasn't the right person to go do, maybe I didn't have I don't know what I needed to do it, but then I came home and I was like telling my mom and my dad I wanted to get baptized. Like I wanted to be a part of what was going on, with mass and learn more. And I remember in fourth grade, this is what brought it on, because it was in fourth grade that I wanted to get baptized. They asked us every morning to go into the chapel, because there was this little chapel in the school, and they asked us every morning to go in there for 10 minutes and spend time in the chapel praying. And I would get off the bus, because I had an hour bus ride. So I'd get off the bus, and I found it amazing to sit in a chapel and, and feel I felt the presence of God. Like I felt like he felt me and I could feel him. And how I prayed, I don't remember exactly, but I know that I got peace from going into the chapel. It was something that I felt he met me there, and I would start my day, very peaceful. And so it was really good for me to do this little morning routine. And then eventually I wanted to get baptized, and my dad met with the chaplain, and the chaplain was all for it. And my dad blocked it by saying that he wanted me to be at least 18 and know what I was doing before I got baptized. So that put a damper on that. And with time, I kind of lost that. Whatever it was that got planted, it either it got, it fell on fertile ground, but it only grew so much. So then I graduated and I went to college. And I went to college at UCSB in Santa Barbara, California. And I wasn't ready for going and living in another continent, in another country, living on my own. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to do laundry. I didn't know anything. I was like, I couldn't have been the most ill-prepared person to go to college. Because at home, even though there was drama, it was still like we always had food on the table, and we had good food on the table. We sat at the table as a family. I did get that. And, our clothes were always clean. And, it was like, you'd think it was like I come from a normal family, right? We had all our needs met, and it wasn't so much about being poor and being in dire need. It was more the emotional part that was chaotic at the house. So I, as soon as I would get to the airport, my dad would take me to the airport. I'd like have a panic attack before going to college, before being pulled apart from him. And that kind of scared me, because, I didn't know, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be thrown into the world like that. And that's something that I always thought about, coming into the American culture and having grown up in the South American culture. It's like you stay at home longer. You live at home for a longer period of time. And because I went to American schools, and also because my dad had met another woman and he wanted to get divorced, and he would have gotten divorced sooner. But I told my dad, a couple years prior, I said, if you get divorced from mom, like I understand you guys are really messed up together, but if you get divorced from mom, I'm going with you. You can't leave me behind with mom, because she was crazy with me. And I think it made him stay until I graduated. So come, time to go to college, my parents were like, let's send her off, or he was ready to send me off so he can move on with his life. And so I get sent off to college, and my parents get divorced. And after the first semester. And in that first semester, this is interesting because this is how much the Lord was in it too. I went to college to be a journalist. I was the editor of my newspaper, of the newspaper in high school, and I liked doing, all the editing and interviewing and stuff. I was the interviewer. So I enjoyed that. And when I went to college, I wanted to be a journalist, and I took my first class in mass media because that was part of the curriculum. And during this class, I went to every class, I went to every study hall, I read all the books, I did all the homework, and yet I got a D- on this class. And remember, I was an A+ student. I graduated with honors and achievement in school, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, what happened?" Like, and because it was a D-, it was a very uh, hard um, note, or grade to come back from. Like, I went through with a counselor what it would take to bring that grade up, and it was going to take so long, and I had to do so much that I don't even remember what it was that I had to do, but I felt that I needed to shift into another career. And and I went into art. Like, I guess the Lord put it in my heart, or I don't even know how it came about, but I was like, you know what, let's try that. This communication wasn't for me. I came from Brazil, so I didn't have the pop culture, which a lot of journalism requires, for the understanding. And probably the Lord knew that I would just get gobbled up because I really speak from the heart, and I'm someone that speaks truth all the time. And honesty was something that I always valued. And, I'm 61 now, and I never sold out to the devil. So I know through my years, I didn't sell. I'm not a sellout. So I would have been that way as a journalist, and I probably wouldn't be alive today. you know, so I got into art, and I didn't know anything about art. I learned everything. I learned color theory, dimension, everything I learned in school. And then my teacher saw that there was the live model drawing, and everybody would draw the model with pencil and charcoal, and I'd get my watercolor paints and I'd paint the lady or the man. And my teacher thought, like, how advanced, to paint a model. And I was doing pretty well. And so he thought that I should go and do education abroad in Italy. He had, if he saw that students were talented enough, he would push them towards doing education abroad in Italy, because he had a line of a connection through the school that he could push it forward. So I began to learn Italian, which was really easy for me because I already spoke Spanish at home and Portuguese in the street and English. So Italian was really fun. And she only spoke Italian. Like, I learned from someone that never spoke any other language to us. But because I spoke Spanish, I could understand it. So I picked it up very quickly. And off to Italy I go. And that again is, you really grow by going into new experiences like that. Other countries, like, I have to say that was a bold move.
Where in Italy were you?
I was in Venice at the Academy of Fine Art in Venice.
Wow.
It's actually one of the big academies. And there's actually a Vaporetto stop that is the academy. So everybody that goes to Venice goes by this. And so I go to Italy, and the Lord didn't want me to go to Italy. And I'll have to admit, I had a boyfriend, and I got pregnant. And it was, I went to Italy in June. I think I got pregnant in January, February. And so that, in hindsight, that was his way of, no, you're going to stay home. You're going to raise this child. And I wasn't ready for that either. And so I ended up getting an abortion, which was a little hard. And I felt like as the child grew, I got attached to it, but I did end up having an abortion. And my dad was rude about it with me. Like, how could I let that happen? Like, I had a steady boyfriend. So, but anyway, that's one of the things I regret. And I've done a lot of repentance about it. And the Lord's actually given me a dream where I met my child up in heaven.
Wow.
And that was amazing. Like, literally, I got to embrace this little boy, and it was the most loving embrace I've ever experienced. And it was through a dream.
Wow.
So the Lord's done a lot with me through dream. He's done a lot of healing of my heart too. And so
Did you learn his name in the dream?
No.
No.
I didn't even know it was a boy before I had the abortion. But it was amazing. The dream was amazing. Literally, I knew he was in heaven and I'm going to see him again. And, I apologize so much. I see now in hindsight how good that would have been for me, and how it would have changed my path and how it would have kept me connected with this first boyfriend of mine. And, because we were really good friends. We had a really nice relationship, and he regrets it too. And it just, we both went to Sozo healing after, and they assured, we did it each individually. And I really did get a lot of healing from that. The Lord really spoke through the ladies that were praying over me during the Sozo. Have you heard of Sozo?
I've heard of it, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's a healing technique by which there's like 3 ladies, and you kind of talk through your journey. And as you talk, they either like see things in the spirit, or they're praying in the spirit and giving you words of what the Lord, how the Lord is going to heal you through this. And so I wasn't supposed to go, but I went. So I guess I was born a little rebellious. I did not know the signs. I wasn't yet, a Christian to know. I wasn't taught that. And, my dad thought I was a tramp because I got pregnant. It was like, nobody counseled me in the right way. And so it seemed like I did the right thing at the time, and I went off to art school. Well, I don't think I've ever experienced a depression, because that was really hard. I felt so alone over there. I felt so like I had nobody at this point. I had to make friends. It wasn't easy making friends. A lot of the people that went to the college, they would go back to their cities where they lived. They wouldn't stay there on the weekends. Venice is there's a lot of old folk there. And that's who mainly lives there. So I didn't even want to live in Venice. I lived in Lido, which you had to take a boat across in the oceans there. Like, I felt when I was in Venice, I loved walking through the streets and stuff, but to live there, I was like, I need to see the horizon. Like, I can't live where it's just buildings on top of each other. I needed to see the horizon. I needed like a bigger perspective. I was a person that I've always liked to have a bigger, broader view of things. And so I lived in Lido, and remember experiencing some of the coldest weather I've ever known in my life. It was literally freezing cold in the winter. And then we also went through the Chernobyl nuclear spill. And that was crazy too, because they told us we needed to shower as much as we could throughout the, for like a 2-week period, just go into the shower 2 or 3 times, just to be sure that it's not attaching to you. And I got really sick at one point. I don't think it was from that. I thought it was from the cold, but um, it made me attach myself to my art. So that was the plus that came out of it. The teacher just basically said, pick a spot on the wall and start painting. That was the class. And I had to do that 5 hours a day, 4 days a week. So I'm like, okay, I picked a corner that had 2 different walls, a bigger one and a smaller one. And every day I'd try something new. And, I was exploring because I didn't have a style. I didn't know what exactly I wanted to paint. And so I was in this exploring mode. And during the winter in Venice, I'd stay at home a lot because it was so cold, and I would paint at home. My roommates would all go for the weekend, and I would stay home and paint these little miniature watercolors, all abstract, but like 20 of them, or 30 of them. And then I'd pick the ones I liked and I'd pin them in my little corner, and I'd get big canvas and pin it up on the wall, and I'd paint it. And eventually I had a body of work that all looked very, very connected. And finally, the teacher comes around and says, aha, I see you got yourself out of the hole. So even, that time of being alone and, focusing, it really is a gift that the Lord gave me, right? Being artistic, you go into that creative space and you are in oneness with, I feel that. I feel like a oneness with the Creator, with the Father, when I'm painting. So I developed that, and I felt really sure that, yeah, I wanted to be a painter in my life, and that sealed it. And I came back and finished university, and I took my first job. Well, anyway, let's get to the Jesus part. But Jesus was with me. He was with me because even it was probably postpartum depression that I was in, but he gave me my art to be a friend to me, to be a companion. Like, art has really been like a companion to me. Like, so much of what I'm going through goes into the art. Like, it has been a vehicle of expression and of healing and of just picking up, creativity and downloads from the Lord. And I enjoyed that space. Like, I enjoyed where I had gotten led to, and I felt, I'm going to do this. This is going to be me. I'm going to be an artist. So, in the end, the education over there, I did benefit from it. Like, it deepened my walk in my own career. And I came back confident, and I didn't want to go take classes anymore. I wanted the teacher to come to my house and at my studio. And he agreed. He's like, all right, I see the situation. You've been painting on your own now for a while. You don't want to, you're developing your own niche. And so he agreed he would come to my studio. And that was, I still got credit for it, like being in a class, and he followed up with what I was doing, and that was unique too. So I wasn't a follower of the system again. I don't know that I would call that rebelliousness, but it was like I didn't just fall into what the world was dishing out. In a way, I was also had a little bit more control of my destiny. Trying things and asking for things to be a little bit different so that you could accommodate me here and there. So that worked out. I graduated with honors and distinction in the major, and then I had to find a job. So I started making 3-of-a-kind greeting cards and started taking them around to different stores. And I ran into a gallery in Montecito and they loved them, and they were selling them. And eventually they asked if I wanted a job at the gallery, that I would do the extended hours and the weekends. And I was like, sure, that's perfect. I get to work during the day on my art, and then, I'll take these extra hours Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and all day Sunday. So I worked 24/7. Or no, I slept, but I worked a lot. And the Lord favored me. But after 6 months, so the owner of the gallery asked me, do you want to get salary or salary and commission? Well, since I wasn't experienced selling, I thought, let's go for the higher salary. So I got the salary. Well, after about 3 months, I learned how to sell, and she saw that I learned how to sell, but she was taking the commission from my sales. So I asked her, I said, is there any chance that I could, you said that at some point, if I felt more confident, you would switch me to salary and commission. And she didn't want to do it. And at that point, I had to make a decision. So after 6 months, I left, and she was shocked that I left, but it wasn't right what she did. It's like, I felt led to leave, and sometimes, you just don't know how it's going to happen, but because you can't accept how things are, because there's something wrong about how it is, it's like all of a sudden doors just opened wide, right? So I began to, I did a Christmas show. It was called the Yes Store, and everybody had their own booths, and we had to put time in, at the register. And I met a lot of other artists. And before you know it, I was doing the art festivals. And the art festivals, I was doing really, really well. I was getting prizes. I was getting awards. I was selling. And my career just took off. But I was doing traditional handmade paper, Japanese paper making technique. That's what I'd learned my last year in college. When I came back from Italy, the one thing that I did do, because my teacher said, this is once in a lifetime, that we don't offer this all the time, but this woman is here from Japan teaching the Japanese papermaking technique. Why don't you take that class? And I took it, and it was really hard. And because it was really hard, I wanted, I took it again to make sure I learned how to do it, because you had to do the most perfect piece of paper. Like all the edges had to be perfect. Like it was hard. It was very hard. And what I did at home was I got myself a wooden mallet, and I would beat the pulp, not as fine as she wanted it to be beat. And I would, she wasn't into the dyeing of the colors, and I would dye the pulp all these different colors. And then I'd make the paper with this screen that was not the traditional Japanese screen. So I made thicker papers that weren't translucent, because the traditional Japanese are more translucent, very thin sheets. And I didn't have use for that. And so I made paper my own way. And before you know it, I was doing collage work, and my collage works were very appealing. And people saw so much manual labor in them and so much time spent. And eventually I became, one of the favorite artists at these art shows. I always got the poster. I got, at every show that I did, I got to be the featured artist that did a poster or got an award. And I had really good clientele, and I had people that were actually patrons. Like I learned that, you attract patrons too if you are good. And I felt like I had some patrons, and I felt like the Lord really favored me. I felt very blessed. And when let's see, where do I go from here? I did have another boyfriend at the time that I was madly in love with. And I think this one like really touched my heart more. It was more passionate. So, you think that that's love, right? Because it's more passionate. So I learned a different part of love through the more passionate love, and but it was also very volatile, so I suffered a lot too. And and eventually it didn't work out between us, but not because I didn't want to. It's just he was a little bit more of a player, and he wanted his cake and eat it too, and he wanted just too much freedom and too much independence, and it didn't, it I was not so independent like that. I was a little bit more the loyal kind, the wanting to be more of a friend and a lover, and you know and just spend more time together, and he wasn't like that. And so it didn't work out between us, and and it was very painful for me. It literally, I didn't know how to shake it. Like, he'd almost become like an obsession. And so I didn't fully heal from that. When I ended up meeting my husband, I must have not healed from that, because I went into a marriage. I must have said something to myself. Like, I must have cursed myself by saying, I don't think I could love another person like I loved that man. So I right there, I like closed my heart, And so I did apologize to my husband. I said, I know I did things wrong, and I didn't receive the healing that I should have gotten after that, even though I tried. I tried for at least 3 or 4 years and I did do healing, but nothing would heal it, and I learned why after I got divorced from my husband, because that other gentleman came back into the picture, and he and all of a sudden I found myself back in time, feeling all these obsessive feelings towards this person from my past. And I was like, it was so confusing. I was like, how could I feel like I'm just like right back where I started, before I had gotten married. And so after like 5 times going either out to dinner or to breakfast or to lunch or whatever, I said to him, I said, are you feeling like, like the love that we had in the past? Like, are you feeling anything like that? And he's like, you had to pull the trigger. And and I was like, what do you mean? Like, you wouldn't have talked about this? Like I'm just like, my heart is exploding right now. And so he had the key to unlock my heart, but he still was not wanting to, have a steady relationship and commit or anything. And so I went through the heartbreak all over again. But first, I'm just like, I'm starting to experience that man woman love all over again, because when I got divorced from my husband, I didn't feel that at all. And so I didn't see how I could continue being in a relationship where none of that, there was no feelings like that. And he had cheated on me, so that was a whole nother story. But when my heart popped open, it was like I went up into the clouds. Like, literally, it was like this balloon that was just like all over the place. Uh, and and it was like my spiritual eyes and ears opened or popped, or something happened, because I started I started feeling like I was now connected to the universe, I don't know what it was. It was like I would see things in the clouds. I would see things in the walls. I don't know. It was like I would see things I would just see, I guess, I don't know that I was seeing, or like a seer, but I was like, songs would come on that were pertinent for that exact moment and my situation, and I would notice them. And, it was just, I was so ungrounded. I was like, oh my God, what's happening to me? Because it literally was unsettling. Like, I had kids, and I had to, take care of a house. And it was very unsettling to go through this and be so ungrounded. But at the same time, it was like, I was like I felt like the Lord was with me, and showing me. He's like, I needed to take you out of there to put you on another path, and I'm going to take you. That wasn't your path. And so I literally started developing these hearts. I learned from another person. They would use, instead of, okay, this is what I went. I was doing paper making, but it was like so much work, the paper making, that I was kind of done with that. I kind of wanted to do something different. And a friend of mine had said that they paint on paper bags. And so one day, and I was like, paper bags, they're cheap, they're free, how does this work? So I actually opened up a paper bag and gessoed it and started painting on it. And, but another thing that I did do, because I submitted an application for Earth Day. I wanted to do the poster for Earth Day. So to do the poster for Earth Day, I got a big piece of paper and I pinched out this heart and I stuffed it with bubble wrap in the back, and I cut out another earth and pinched it so that it had dimension, and I put it on the heart, and so my poster turned out really, really cool. So and I was like, oh my gosh, this whole heart thing is so amazing. And it led me to then open up a bunch more bags and pinch out these hearts. And I would paint different things on the hearts, things that almost like a healing. I was taking myself through parts of my heart and painting them to where I developed this heal, paint your heart out, it was called. It was a healing technique where you wrote on a piece of paper what the intention for this heart is. So I would, the intention of this heart is to heal a wound. And I did paint this one. I actually collaged my first heart piece, and it was a big tear in the heart, and it was an embrace, and it was the whole story with that one gentleman. It's like, and it really was a masterpiece. I still have it, and every time I'd look at it, and if someone asked me about it, I would get emotional and start crying. And after 2 years of this painting, dominating my wound, I was like, I gotta just cover this. So I took it apart and I started putting all this paper and leaves and I don't know, grass. I was just covering it. And I felt like, this is like what a butterfly, how a butterfly grows, right? It's like first you cocoon and then a butterfly will come out of this. So I had that in mind. And so I kept it covered up while, you know, spiritually it was cocooning. And until I figured out what to do with it. Like it took a little time. And in the meantime, I was painting these hearts and literally, painting my broken heart, camouflaged heart, all these different names that I found of how to paint hearts. Heart of stone, heart of gold. It was all kinds of different hearts, and it literally took me through a healing journey through art. So a friend of mine, after I got divorced and saw that I met up with this person again, she told me, she's like, Andrea, I think you need to come to church with me. And so I did go to church with her. And she's like, I think, you can't stop talking about him. Like you have an obsession with him. It's like something's off. Like you really need to heal that. And she was a detox specialist. And so I started doing detox, and I exchanged filling her detox center with art, and I made her a big heart piece of the detox because it was like the foot bath and all the toxics, all the toxic colors. Each color is a different toxic. And in the water, when you do these detox, and I did this heart with all the detox heart, and she loved it and put it in her office. And so I'd come in for detox, And then she taught me how to do coffee enemas to really do a deeper detox. And so I would meditate 30 minutes with the coffee enema. And literally, I realized that my issue was that I didn't have God first. I would wake up and start talking to this gentleman. Like he didn't even exist in my life, but I'm talking to him. And I'm like, I can't do that. I need to cure this. And what does it take? They say that habits take, 30 days or 60 days or whatever. So I was determined that I was going to transform my mind. And I started reading the Bible. And when I do these healing or these detox enemas, I'd meditate on the word and I'd talk to God and and I realized that it was the Jesus part that was missing in my life. Like I didn't understand how he really fit in to this. That was like, if I was a Jew and I knew God, is like I didn't understand the Jesus part. Typical Jew, right? But I didn't even acknowledge that I was Jewish at that time. To me, I was more Christian. I went the Christian walk, and I remember going to church with Dawn, and that was her name, and the band was really, really good. Like I love music, worship music, and even the pastor was the guitarist, and it was a dark church with all the lights on the stage. Like it was very contemporary in a way, and it was like going to a party. I was like, I love this, and I would see everybody putting their hands up and worshiping the Lord, and I finally learned the music to where I felt like I wanted to put my hands up. And when I finally had a song that I really liked and touched me, and I raised my hands, all the goosebumps came over me from head to toe. And I knew that the Lord had met me there. And almost like, welcome, daughter, welcome. Now you're understanding, what it is that I've been trying to bring you into for so long. And so it took it was a long journey till I finally came to the knowledge of Christ. I was probably, I don't even know exactly what age I was. I was in my 40s, but when I found Jesus and I understood that it was my alignment that was off, I had love of man first, or, I also was, when I was little, my dad said that he thought I had the Oedipus complex because he thought I loved him too much. So it was like this started as a young girl. And he had to distance himself. He felt like he had to distance himself from me as a child because he saw that I was so attached to him. So I craved that love, except I didn't know where to find it. And nobody knew how to guide me in my family and in my walk till I finally met Dawn, the detox specialist. And she was a devout Christian. Her father was also a pastor. And I owe her so much. And I literally clung to Jesus so tight, and I have never let go. It was the biggest find of my entire life, to find Jesus and to know that he had been waiting for me and seeking me and wanting to bring me in, and that he was helping me heal through art. He had led me to be an artist. Everything that had happened to me, even having given me a child at a young age, I was like, what a gift. And I didn't recognize it. And it was to protect me, from going abroad. And he had other plans for me. And it was like, I really needed to learn about Jesus. And I really needed to understand all the mistakes that I made and how I could work through them and heal all the broken parts of myself. It's like I felt so broken. I felt so broken. I felt like everything even though I was successful with the art, it's like I just felt like other, relational things in my life were a disaster. Literally a disaster. They all went south. There was no, people did not love me. I didn't feel the love of people, and I didn't know how to speak it out. I didn't know how to converse about it. I didn't know how to. I didn't. I I had been a little bit on my own a lot, because even as a child, it's like I'd run to my room and just lock the door and do my own thing. Like I didn't want to be with my brother out there, and my mom and dad were crazy, and I would just like I've experienced solitude from a very early age and learned to love it. Literally learned to like being by myself, and maybe to a fault, because I'm very selective who I let in my life. And, I don't know. I just, you know, I need more of the human connection. I know that I need more of the human connection, but it doesn't come as easy to me. And I found that it came easier to me when I give. You have to love in order to be loved back. And so there was a lot of times where like the journey with my ex-husband. He when we got divorced, I stayed 5 extra years in Santa Barbara, both of us co-parenting the children. And finally I couldn't open a gallery. I wanted to open a gallery, and there was no give. I went through 7 different lease spaces trying to get a gallery, and someone would either snatch it from under me because they had more deeper pockets, and or they didn't want an art business, or I didn't have enough experience, whatever it was. I didn't get to open a gallery in Santa Barbara, and I had the money to do it. I had the business plan, and I had done all that, and but I guess it wasn't the time. And so after 5 years, I was like, well, I can't stay in Santa Barbara. It's like all the doors are shutting on me. And the Lord inspired me to go to a high school reunion in Florida. And I went, and I had the time of my life reconnecting with my high school friends. And I realized that very few of them are Christian. Like I'm one of the few Christians. And I went to Portugal to a high school reunion, my second high school reunion, with more people in my grade. And it was 2019, so I was learning about what was going on with politics. I knew President Trump was running. Nobody was on board with me. It was like nobody. Like I wouldn't even have dreams of President Trump. Nobody. Like if I said anything about President Trump, I just got squashed. It was like nobody wanted to talk to me. They didn't want to hear my experiences with my walk with Jesus. I was like, wow, and the Lord showed me He wanted me to bring them into the fold. In time, He started. He's like, slowly, you're going to build their trust, and they're going to realize you're not this bad person that they're making you out to be, and you're not all conspiracy theories. These things will play out, and people will eventually learn, and I'm going to turn it around, and I'm still hoping and praying for that, because they still push. When I try to get in the chats and share something, it's like, oh, Andrea, here comes the politics again, or no. And then they forbidden me to talk politics or religion. And I'm like, well, what am I going to talk about then?
Wow. What an incredible journey you've been on. What
Yeah.
an amazing journey.
So a lot of healing through art, and but the presence of God, so powerful. That's what once I found Jesus, it was like His presence was so powerful. Like the fire in me was so lit. I was just, I couldn't get over how important this was, and what a turning point this was in my life. and then, what art I wanted to paint I wanted to, all my art, I wanted all my art to be about everything that I was learning from the Bible. And that's when I got planted the seeds of doing prophetic art. I did a whole body of work called the Love and Abundance uh, series, which was all about these trees planting seeds, all about the seed thing, planting seeds and watching the growth of the trees. And in the leaves, I would use foreign currency. Like I learned this technique of sculpting with metal, with copper wire, these leaves, and then I'd wrap them with the paper, and then I'd decorate them with foreign currency and all the currency from all over the world. My family, who had traveled a lot, were all sending me currencies, and people were giving me, their spare currencies from that they didn't, that some of it wasn't even real money anymore. It was real money at one point, but it had changed currency. So I had all these bills, and I was doing, I don't want to call them money trees because that's not what I was doing. I was planting seeds, and the roots were growing, and so the fruit was the leaves, right? And so the leaves were the nations. Like, it was so much more powerful than just money trees. It's not money trees, and I still have that body of work, and it's phenomenal.
Wow.
So, and a lot of my testimony is given through that series. I actually have it on my website, and so yeah,
I, I love how, as you shared your journey and your story, you could see God was with you the whole time. Now, do you look back, even though you said you didn't meet Jesus until your 40s, but you look back, can you see where he's been there the whole time?
absolutely, absolutely, and he wanted so much more from me, and I didn't have the people around me to help me get there,
Wow.
and I didn't know to look. I guess, I don't know. I didn't break out of my shell enough, or I was more timid, and I didn't. It's like I'm still like that. I'm a house person. I like to be in the house. It's like I only go out to do exactly what I need to do. But once I get out, I'm like a butterfly. It's like the world opens up to me, but I, like, a little bit, need to be taken by the hand. And the Lord shows me that I have an airplane to fly, but I need help flying the airplane.
Yes. Well, what message do you have? Just give us, wrapping this up.
Okay.
What's your message to?
My message for to young people is to really look at your upbringing and really think of the things that have hurt you, and know that Jesus is going to help you heal. Like, know that seeking Jesus at an earlier age, seeking understanding and revelation from Jesus. If you just ask Jesus to manifest himself in your life, he will. I can assure you that, especially to a young one. You don't even have to be young, but just even immature, someone even immature that's not emotionally yet grown. God so much wants to draw you near and help you through your issues. So don't avoid the healing. I didn't do enough healing, when I didn't understand how my upbringing had damaged certain parts of me, and molded me to feel more victimized. And that whole issue is so big right now, the victim mentality and getting offended. And we really need to know that that's not God's way, and that he has a better plan for us. And just like he took me out of journalism and into art, like, he had a better plan. And if you allow yourself to see where you're not going correctly, he will redirect you and make a way. And I'm proof of that. And even in my blindness, he made a way. So I don't know, my message is, have more faith that there's God. and that God is also Jesus, and through them is the Holy Spirit who guides you. So know that there's three entities out there that are really one, that really are for you. They really are with you. They really want to help you. They really want to show you and teach you. Not just, they want to teach you too. There's a lot in the teaching, and the Bible teaches so much. The Bible teaches so much. I mean, just some scriptures that came to me today that marked me. Proverbs 19:18 and 19. This one touched me recently. Don't be afraid to discipline your children while they're still young enough to learn. Don't indulge your children or be swayed by their protests. A hot-tempered man has to pay the price for his anger. If you bail him out once, you'll do it a dozen times. That hit me so hard just not too long ago. I was like, did I teach my children enough? I went to bed worried. Did I teach my children enough? Because, there was a part of their life where my ex-husband pulled them away from me. And it was right when they were 15 till recently. So I didn't have much of an influence on them, like on a day-to-day basis. And I just got worried, like, am I going to have to constantly rescue my children? Like, that's not the Lord's best for them, that someone come and rescue them. He'll rescue you, but he wants you to get strong because he's going to strengthen you. And he wants you to know that trials are allowed to build your faith. So rejoice in your trials. Don't take them as punishment. Take them as a experience. And we're not always victorious in all of our trials and everything we try. Failing is part of the journey. We need to know that failing is also a lesson. You learn from it and then you move on. And you got to learn to shut doors that aren't growing you. You need to shut them, and you need to let new doors open. Like, I really want to encourage young people, not to get stuck in places of darkness, or just the feeling of being stuck, or helpless. There is help, and it is spiritual. Like, you can get spiritual help. It doesn't even have to come from another human being. It could be spiritual. You could read your Bible, and all of a sudden a scripture can just blow your mind. Like, delight. Well, how about this one? Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will hold you up with my victorious right hand. I mean, these are promises. Like, if we learn different scriptures, like, you just type promises of God, all these scriptures will come out. Learn those promises. Like, God has promises for us, and we have to be encouraged and know that he will fulfill his promises. His word does not come back void. We have to start growing our faith and knowing that, life is a little hard, and people aren't always the kindest. And we as humans, I'm completely imperfect. I make mistakes, and and the Lord corrects me too. And I pay the price for certain ones. And, but it's part of the journey. We need to learn to forgive. That's another big one. We need to learn to forgive. Our parents are doing the best that they can, the best that they know how. A lot of people are hurt and continue to stay in their patterns of hurt. So I just think healing is one of the greatest gifts that God gives us. And I promise to all of you out there that I'm going to put together a few of my techniques that I used to heal myself through art, that you are welcome to try on your own. Or if you need guidance, you can reach out to me. But the paint your heart out, you want to, Jesus will make your heart whole again. He will take all the broken parts and heal them. And he will even restore the scars I have to tell you this dream. I had a dream one time that I won't get into the whole story, but in the dream, I actually felt that the scar in my heart was being healed. And I touched myself and I woke myself saying, I'm healed, I'm healed, I'm healed. Like I felt the skin just totally, get all plump and healed from the scar in my heart. And I knew that through that dream, the Lord had healed me. Like the Lord can do things in the most mysterious of ways. Don't think that there's, a man-made way to do all things. Like there is so much spiritual help for us. It's so, you just have to receive in a different way. You have to let your gut be your guide. You have to read the word and let it transform your mind. You have to put some of this stuff into practice too. It's like through walking it out, you really do learn how present God really is. So that's my biggest message: healing, forgiving, and reconciling with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family. God says, don't come to the altar if you have not, don't come and drop, a gift at the altar if you haven't reconciled with your brothers and your sisters. First, drop your present, go reconcile, and then come back. And that is so true. It's like God wants us to have a clean slate. He wants us, all our relationships to be healed so that he could use us. Because when you have unforgiveness, that's like a door for the enemy to go through you. So you really don't want to open those doors to the enemy. You really want to be covered in forgiveness. Everybody deserves forgiveness. Your parents did the best they can. Yes, they made mistakes. You'll make mistakes. We need to understand that making mistakes is part of the journey.
Amen.
It's not a crime. Not everything is a crime. It's part of the journey. It's the trials and the learning and the walking it out, but you need the word of God. You need his revelation. You need to know that there is someone so great and so in your corner. You really need to know. You need to know who he is. You need to let him reveal himself and show you how much he's in your corner. God's revealed himself through lightning to me. Wind, I've asked for confirmation, and this blowing of the wind goes right past me. Many ways he's confirmed things to me, through dreams, through clouds, through, just the stirring of my creamer in my coffee. I'll see things, like I'll see a heart, I'll crack an egg and there'll be a heart, a little space in the shape of a heart, and I'll know God's there with me. It's like, it's amazing how much he's there.
Amen. You can see him in everything.
Yep, he's in everything. He's in everything. You can look at anything and find God. I promise you, that is the truth.
I agree. Amen. Andrea, thank you so much for getting on the ark.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, and I hope
it was a blessing listening to your story. It was so amazing, and I could feel it from your heart when you're sharing. It was great.
Awesome. Yes.
Thanks for watching Get on the Ark. And there's a couple of things you can do. Please, after you watch this episode and you feel like someone that needs to see it or hear it, send it to them and let God do his thing. And we're called by God to share where we live, where we work, and where we play. And so let's continue to do that. And if you also feel like you're watching, you have a story you want to share or you want to tell, go to getontheark22.com and sign up, and we will share your testimony. And AndreaBeloff.com, right? We can see
that's my website, AndreaBeloff.com.
We can see your work, and I put it up there on the screen. And your work is amazing. So go to the website, check out our work, whatever we can do to support you and show your work. It's just awesome. So thanks again for being on the show. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And we talked about a part 2. So we're going to, next time we'll talk about how I became a prophetic artist.
Yes, we'll definitely need a part two for sure.
Yeah. So stay tuned, everybody. I love you, and God bless you all.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you.